My name's Hannah, and for a long time I thought the sound of wedding bells would fix everything that was broken inside me. I remember that morning so clearly, not because it was perfect but because something in me already knew it wasn't. The air in my room was still and heavy, like it was holding its breath. The makeup artist hummed along to a pop song while brushing highlighter over my cheekbones, and I sat there staring at my reflection, trying to feel what a bride is supposed to feel. Joy. Radiance. Certainty. Instead I felt static, like I was watching my life from behind glass. There was this faint smell of peonies, my mother's favorite flower, and the soft rustle of satin from the gown I'd dreamed of since I was a little girl. Everything looked right. Everything looked like a movie. And still, something in me whispered, "You don't belong here." I pushed that thought away, smiled for the camera, tilted my chin the way the photographer told me to. The kind of smile that stretches your face but never reaches your eyes. Because when you've planned something for years, when your friends and family have flown in, when thousands of dollars have been spent and your name is printed in gold cursive on the invitation, you don't get to change your mind. You perform. And God, I performed so well that day. The ceremony was in this old white chapel just outside of Charleston, the kind with creaky wooden pews and sunlight filtering through colored glass. I can still hear the way the organ echoed, the sound bouncing off the walls like something sacred. And there he was, Evan, standing at the end of the aisle, smiling that smile that used to make me feel seen. When I first met him, I thought he was the calm to my chaos. He had this quiet confidence, the kind that felt safe. I mistook that safety for love. We met at a mutual friend's birthday dinner in DC. I just moved there for work, still living off takeout and caffeine, trying to convince myself I had it all together. He was older, steadier, and when he offered to walk me home that night, I didn't say no. He wasn't the kind of man who flooded your phone with messages or showed up unannounced with flowers. He was subtle, contained. I used to think that was maturity. Now I see it was distance. I remember the first time he told me he loved me. It was after 6 months of dating. We were sitting in his car after a dinner downtown, the windows fogged up from the rain. He said it like it was an afterthought, like he'd been meaning to mention it but forgot. "I love you," he said. And I smiled so hard I almost missed the part where he didn't look at me when he said it. He was staring straight ahead at the traffic light. That should have been the first clue. In the months leading up to the wedding, I ignored every instinct that tried to warn me. The silences that lingered too long. The way he'd sigh when I asked if he was happy. How he never once looked up when I sent him pictures of venues or dresses. It's strange how we learn to gaslight ourselves before anyone else ever does. I'd tell myself he was just busy. That not everyone shows excitement the same way. That love is calm, not chaotic. That's what I told my friend Maya when she asked if I was sure. She looked at me across her kitchen island, barefoot, hair tied up in a messy bun, and said, "Hannah, are you happy or just comfortable?" And I laughed. Brushed it off. I said something like, "Nobody's happy all the time, Maya." But that question, "Are you happy or just comfortable?" it followed me like a ghost. Standing at that altar looking into Evan's eyes, I couldn't find the girl I used to be. The one who used to dream about love letters and inside jokes and being known. Really known. He looked handsome, yes. Impeccably put together. But his eyes, they were somewhere else. When the officiant said, "You may now kiss the bride," his lips touched mine like a formality. The guests clapped, cameras flashed, and the organ swelled. I smiled. I kept smiling. And somewhere deep inside, something small and fragile cracked open. The reception was everything I thought I'd wanted. Fairy lights strung through the trees, jazz band playing softly in the background, my dress catching the light just right as I spun. People kept telling me I looked like the happiest woman alive. And maybe in pictures I did. But every time Evan slipped away to take a call, every time his hand loosened in mine, I felt that distance again. That quiet, invisible wall. There was a moment, late in the evening, when I stepped outside alone. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and champagne, and the night buzzed faintly with laughter and cicadas. I looked up at the sky and thought, is this it? Is this what I've been waiting for? The thought terrified me, because I realized then that my dream wedding wasn't about love. It was about validation. About proving I could be chosen. About fixing something inside me that no one else could fix. When we got home from the honeymoon, a week in Santorini that looked better in photos than it felt in person, reality began to show its teeth. Evan went back to work like nothing had changed. He was an attorney, the kind who thrived on long hours and late nights, and I learned very quickly that marriage wasn't going to slow him down. I'd sit in our kitchen still half unpacked and listen to the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of the city outside our window. And in that silence, I realized how lonely it can feel to share a life with someone who's never really with you. He'd come home late, loosen his tie, scroll through his phone and say, "You okay?" I'd nod, smile, pretend. Because how do you tell someone you feel invisible without sounding ungrateful? We had a beautiful apartment, a marriage that looked enviable on social media, and friends who said we were goals. But behind the filters and the matching wine glasses, I was unraveling. The first real fight happened over something small. A dinner reservation, I think. I wanted to try this new restaurant I'd been looking forward to for weeks. He canceled last minute, said work was running late again. I said, "You could have told me earlier." He sighed, that same long exasperated sigh, and said, "Hannah, you always make everything so emotional." That sentence, it hung in the air like smoke. You always make everything so emotional. It was the kind of thing that sounds harmless until you realize it's meant to silence you, to make you doubt your own needs. After that, I stopped bringing things up. I stopped asking for more. I told myself he'd come around, that marriage takes adjustment, that maybe I was just being too sensitive. But you can't fix a silence by making yourself quieter. One night, a few months in, I was scrolling through his phone while he was asleep. Not because I thought he was cheating, but because I felt like a stranger in my own marriage and I needed to know why. There were no affairs. No scandal. Just message after message with his coworkers. Long threads filled with jokes, warmth, familiarity. The kind of energy he never gave me anymore. And that's when it hit me. The betrayal wasn't another woman. It was the slow erosion of attention. I wasn't losing him to someone else. I was losing him to indifference. I lay there beside him, staring at the ceiling, the blue light from his phone still burning against my skin. And I thought, this is what it feels like to be chosen and still feel unwanted. Sometimes, I replay those early days of our marriage in my head like a movie I can't stop watching, trying to find the exact frame where love turned into loneliness. Maybe it wasn't one moment. Maybe it was hundreds of small ones. The missed calls. The distracted nods. The way I'd tell a story and see his eyes glaze over halfway through. It's strange, the way love fades isn't loud. It's not a shattering. It's a slow, quiet dimming. Like a candle burning down until you're sitting in the dark, wondering when it happened. And in that darkness you start to disappear too. I think the hardest part wasn't realizing I'd married the wrong man. It was realizing I'd ignored the right woman. The one I used to be before I started trying so hard to be what someone else needed. That's what loss really is sometimes. Not the end of love, but the erosion of self. By the time our first anniversary came around, I didn't recognize myself anymore. We had dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city lights. The waiter poured champagne, Evan took a picture for Instagram, and I stared down at my reflection in the glass table, wondering when I stopped being me. The music was soft, romantic, and I could feel the weight of the ring on my finger like a question I couldn't answer. And somewhere deep down I knew, this was the beginning of an ending. It's strange how endings don't announce themselves. They arrive in whispers. The unanswered texts, the goodnight kisses that land half an inch off, the laughter that stops midair because no one's really listening. That's how it started for me. Not with a fight. Not with betrayal. Just with silence. By our second year of marriage, Evan and I had built a life that looked beautiful on paper. 2 good jobs, a tidy apartment in Arlington, matching bath towels, joint savings, a calendar that told us when to call our parents. We even had a Sunday ritual. Pancakes, coffee, the New York Times. But beneath that rhythm, something essential was missing. Something I was too afraid to name. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being unseen while someone's standing right next to you. And I was drowning in it. It began showing up in small ways. He stopped asking about my day. I stopped volunteering the answer. We ate dinner side by side, our phones lighting up the table like 2 quiet witnesses. I used to reach for his hand under the table out of habit. He used to move it to grab his drink. And every time I'd tell myself it didn't mean anything. That we were just tired. That all couples go through this. But somewhere between the excuses I started talking to myself again. Narrating my own thoughts in the shower, whispering questions into the air. Not because I expected answers, but because I needed to hear someone's voice, even if it was mine. There was this one night, I remember it like it's tattooed in my chest. It was late autumn. The kind of cold that makes the windows fog from the inside. I had just finished cooking dinner. Nothing fancy, just roasted chicken and mashed potatoes, and I waited for him to come home. He texted, "Leaving soon." That was an hour ago. So I sat at the table scrolling through my phone, pretending to look busy, the food going cold. When he finally walked in, he looked exhausted. His tie was loose, his hair slightly damp from the drizzle outside. He saw the table, the candles I'd lit, the plates, the small attempt I'd made at keeping something alive between us. He said, "You didn't have to do all this." And somehow that hurt more than if he'd said nothing at all. We ate mostly in silence. I asked about his day. He shrugged. Asked about mine out of politeness. And when I tried to tell him about something at work, a project I was proud of, he checked his phone mid-sentence. It wasn't the first time, but it was the first time I stopped finishing the story. Later that night I went to wash the dishes. I could hear the TV playing from the living room. Some documentary, his voice occasionally breaking the quiet with a muted laugh. And that's when I felt it, this sharp, invisible grief. Like mourning something that's still standing. It's not that he was cruel. He wasn't. He was just elsewhere. Always somewhere I couldn't reach. And I kept trying, for months, maybe years, to meet him halfway across a distance he never noticed was there. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. Not because I wanted to remember, but because I needed proof that I existed. That I was still having thoughts, feelings, dreams that belonged only to me. Some nights I'd write about what I wished he'd say. Other nights I'd write letters to a version of myself I missed. The girl who used to believe love could heal everything. I'd write, "Where did you go? And what happened to your voice?" There was one entry I still remember. "He's right here beside me and I've never felt further away. I keep talking, hoping he'll look up and see me. But it's like I'm fading in slow motion and he doesn't even notice." That night I cried quietly into the pillow. Not because I was sad, but because I was scared of what would happen if I stopped caring. Around that time I started confiding in Maya again. She was the only one who could see through the curated perfection I kept posting online. We met for brunch one Sunday. I remember the smell of coffee and buttered toast, the way sunlight spilled through the cafe window like honey. She looked at me, really looked, and said, "You've lost weight." I told her I was fine. She didn't believe me. She never did, thank God. He asked how Evan and I were doing. I said, "We're good." And she said, "That's not what your eyes say." That broke something in me. Because I realized I couldn't even tell my best friend the truth. I was too busy protecting an image of happiness I didn't even recognize anymore. Then came the night I found out about her. Not in the way you think, not a secret affair, not a scandal. Just a woman from his office, Lydia. He mentioned her one evening, casually, the way you might mention a coworker who's funny or smart. But something about the way he said her name, the softness in his tone, made my stomach twist. He started bringing her up more often after that. "Lydia said this. Lydia suggested that. Lydia has a knack for solving problems." And maybe it wasn't love, not yet. But it was attention, and I knew what it felt like to lose that. I'd watch him light up when he talked about work. The way his shoulders relaxed, his face softened. And I'd think, when was the last time he looked at me like that? One night he came home late, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. Not strong enough to accuse, just enough to haunt. I didn't say anything. Because sometimes silence feels safer than hearing the truth. The following weeks were a blur of tension. Polite smiles, unspoken words, the kind of distance you could measure in miles though we slept in the same bed. I'd lie awake at night, listening to his breathing, wondering if he was dreaming about someone else. And sometimes I hated myself for even wondering. Because the truth was, by then I wasn't innocent either. I'd started daydreaming about other lives. Lives where I didn't have to tiptoe around someone's indifference. Where I could be loud again. Clumsy. Messy. Alive. There was a man at my office, Daniel, who made me laugh in that effortless way I hadn't felt in years. He wasn't a flirt. He was just kind. Curious. He looked at me like I mattered. And for a while that was enough to remind me I still existed. Nothing ever happened between us. But I won't pretend I didn't think about it. About what it would feel like to be seen again. I think that's when I realized, emotional infidelity isn't always about desire. Sometimes it's just hunger. I hit my lowest point one night in February. Evan was away on a work trip and the apartment felt too quiet. I'd been staring at my laptop trying to distract myself when the power went out during a storm. The silence that followed was suffocating. No hum from the fridge. No glow from the screen. Just the sound of rain against the windows. I sat there on the floor, wrapped in a blanket, surrounded by the flicker of candlelight. And I started crying, the kind of crying that doesn't have a beginning or an end. I cried for the girl who once believed in love stories. I cried for the woman who kept performing happiness long after it stopped being true. And I cried for the life I built around someone who didn't even notice I was slipping away. When the lights finally came back on, the apartment looked exactly the same, but I didn't. Something in me shifted that night. It wasn't a grand revelation. Just a quiet decision. I can't keep doing this. A few days later, I told Evan I wanted to go to therapy. He said, "Sure, if it'll make you feel better." He didn't ask why. He thought it was about stress, maybe anxiety. But it wasn't. It was about survival. My therapist's name was Dr. Collins. Soft-spoken, with kind eyes and a bookshelf full of stories about people finding themselves again. During our first session, she asked, "When's the last time you felt truly loved?" I sat there for a long time before I answered. Then I said, "I don't remember." And she nodded like she already knew. We talked about boundaries, self-worth, patterns. About how I learned somewhere along the line that love meant earning your place instead of being chosen freely. I started to see how often I'd settled for crumbs and called it a meal. Therapy didn't fix everything, but it gave me language for the ache I'd been carrying. It made me realize that the version of me Evan fell in love with, the easygoing, low-maintenance, always smiling woman, wasn't real. She was a performance I built to keep from being abandoned. And when I stopped performing, he lost interest. That truth hurt more than I can explain. But it also set me free. There was one night a few months later when I finally said it out loud. We were in the kitchen, both pretending to cook dinner together. The kind of awkward domesticity that happens when two people don't know how to talk anymore. He was slicing tomatoes and I was washing lettuce, and I said, "Evan, are you happy?" He didn't look up. "Sure," he said. And I said, "I'm not." The words hung there between us, heavy and fragile. He stopped chopping. Looked at me for the first time in what felt like months. There was confusion in his eyes, but not surprise. Like he'd been waiting for me to say it. He said, "What do you mean?" And I said, I think we built something beautiful on top of something empty." Neither of us spoke for a long time after that. That night he slept on the couch. Not out of anger, just out of resignation. And when I woke up the next morning, I stood in the doorway and watched him sleeping, his arm draped over his eyes, the faint sound of his breathing filling the quiet. He looked peaceful, unbothered. And I thought, this man is not cruel. He's just not mine. In the weeks that followed, we tried to patch things up. Dinners, counseling, polite promises. But it was like trying to resuscitate a ghost. The love we once had become a memory we were both too polite to bury. One afternoon, I walked through our apartment and realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd laughed in those walls. The light felt different. The air heavier. And I knew something had to change. I didn't leave right away. It took months of small courage, of packing pieces of myself first before I ever packed a suitcase. But one morning, while folding laundry, I found a photograph from our wedding. It was the one where we were cutting the cake. Everyone around us was cheering, and I was smiling, wide, radiant, perfect. But my eyes told another story. And for the first time, I didn't look away. That's when I realized my dream wedding wasn't a beginning. It was an illusion. A grand, glittering distraction from the truth I didn't want to face. That I married the wrong man. And that maybe the person I needed to find again was me. There's this thing that happens after you break. After you finally admit the truth you've been tiptoeing around for years. The world doesn't explode. Nobody rushes in to save you. The sky doesn't open with clarity. It's quieter than that. You wake up one morning, make coffee, sit on the same couch where everything ended, and realize that somehow you're still here. That was me. That morning. It had been 3 weeks since I left. The apartment was half empty, some of my things still in boxes, others still at Evan's. I'd moved into a small studio on the other side of town, the kind with creaky floors and walls thin enough to hear your neighbor sneeze. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, I didn't have to shrink to fit someone else's silence. The first few days were brutal. There's no romantic way to describe it. Everything felt foreign. The echo of my footsteps, the stillness of the evenings, the way the bed seemed too wide for one person. I'd wake up and reach for a body that wasn't there anymore. Then I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, unsure whether to cry or breathe. It wasn't just losing him. It was losing the rhythm of us, even if that rhythm had been offbeat and uneven. It's strange how grief doesn't always follow love. Sometimes it follows habit. And I had 1,000 habits to unlearn. For weeks I kept replaying our life in my head. The dinners, the laughter, the awkward silences that turned into oceans. I wondered if I'd been unfair. If I should have tried harder, waited longer, compromised more. But then I remembered how small I'd become trying to keep us alive. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from running out of love, but from running out of yourself. And I was empty. I started filling my days with little things. Taking long walks in the mornings, learning how to cook for one, buying flowers for myself just because I could. At first, it felt forced, like I was playing pretend. Smiling at strangers. Acting like I wasn't broken. But over time, the small rituals started to feel real. There was a coffee shop 2 blocks away, Olive and Finch. I went there every day before work, ordered the same thing. Oat milk latte extra cinnamon. The barista, a guy named Miles, started remembering my order. Started asking about my day. He had kind eyes and the kind of easy warmth that didn't demand anything from me. It wasn't love. It wasn't even attraction. It was presence, someone seeing me without wanting to fix me. And that, in its own quiet way, was healing. One night I got an email from Evan. No subject line. Just a few lines of text. Hope you're doing okay. The apartment's empty without you. I've been thinking about everything. Maybe we could talk sometime. I must have read it 20 times. I didn't reply right away. I wanted to, God I did. Because part of me still wanted closure, or maybe just confirmation that he missed me. But another part of me knew that we weren't meant to circle back. We'd already said everything there was to say, even the things we never said out loud. I closed my laptop, sat in silence, and whispered to myself, you don't need to go back to be whole. That night I slept through the night for the first time in months. Healing, I've learned, isn't cinematic. It's not a sunrise montage or a powerful song swelling in the background. It's dishes piling up in the sink because you didn't have the energy to wash them. It's laughing too hard at something small and realizing you hadn't laughed like that in ages. It's forgiving yourself for staying too long and leaving too late. Some days I still missed him. Some nights I still scrolled through old photos and let nostalgia trick me into softness. But missing someone doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. It just means you were human enough to love deeply, even when it cost you. Months passed. Spring came, and with it, a lightness I hadn't felt in years. I remember walking through the farmer's market one Saturday morning. The air smelled like strawberries and rain. I saw couples holding hands, kids running around, and for the first time it didn't sting. It didn't make me bitter or lonely. It just made me grateful. Grateful that I'd loved once, even if it ended badly. Grateful that I could start over. There's a strange kind of grace in realizing that your story doesn't end with heartbreak. It just changes chapters. I started traveling alone. First to visit Maya. She'd moved to Oregon by then. She met me at the airport, ran up and hugged me so tight I almost cried. Over dinner she said, "You look lighter." I laughed. "You mean tired?" She shook her head. "No. You look like yourself again." And I realized she was right. The girl who used to chase love for validation, who stayed quiet to keep the peace, who smiled through disappointment, she wasn't gone. She'd just been waiting for me to come back. Back home I signed up for pottery classes on a whim. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted to touch something I could shape, something that didn't fall apart when I held it too tightly. The first few tries were disasters. The clay collapsed, cracked, spun off the wheel. But with time I learned to be gentler. To steady my hands. And I realized something: healing works the same way. You can't force it into shape. You have to hold it softly, let it become what it's meant to be. One evening after class I walked home as the sun set over the river, the light turning everything gold. For a brief moment I stopped, closed my eyes and breathed. And I thought of all the versions of me that had existed. The hopeful bride, the quiet wife, the broken woman sitting in the dark, and I wanted to thank them all. Because even in their mistakes, their heartbreak, their desperation, they got me here. Still standing. Still breathing. Still learning how to live. A few months later I bumped into Evan. It was at a grocery store. The universe's cruel sense of humor. He looked the same. Maybe a little more tired around the eyes. We did the small talk thing. Work, mutual friends, the weather. It wasn't awkward, not really. Just distant. Before we parted he said, "You look happy." And for once I didn't feel the need to downplay it. I said, I am. Or at least I'm trying. He nodded, smiled a little sadly. I'm glad. And that was it. No tears. No rekindling. No grand closure. Just two people who once promised forever, standing in front of the fruit aisle, realizing they'd finally let each other go. That night I went home and sat by my window watching the city lights flicker. And I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not at him. Not at myself. The pain didn't vanish. It just stopped running the show. I started seeing love differently after that. It's not about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about choosing each other, and choosing yourself, every day. And if one day someone comes along who meets me halfway, who listens, who stays, that'll be beautiful. But if not, that's okay too. Because I've learned that peace can be just as sacred as passion. Sometimes I still think about that girl in the white dress, standing in front of the mirror, trying to smile her way through doubt. I wish I could tell her she wasn't weak for staying, or foolish for believing, or selfish for leaving. I'd tell her she was human. And I'd tell her that one day she'd find a way to turn her pain into softness again, to rebuild from the ruins without needing anyone else to save her. So no, I didn't get my fairy tale ending. But maybe I got something better. The truth. The truth that sometimes love isn't enough. That sometimes walking away is the bravest kind of loyalty, the one you give to yourself. And that even after the dream collapses, you can still build something real out of the debris. Something quiet. Something honest. Something that finally feels like home. And if there's anyone listening tonight who's standing where I once stood, torn between staying and saving yourself, I want you to know this. It's okay to want more. It's okay to start over. It's okay to outgrow the version of your life that no longer fits. You are not ungrateful for wanting peace. You are not broken for walking away. And no matter how lost you feel right now, you will find your way back to yourself. Maybe not all at once. Maybe not easily. But slowly. Quietly, gently, like light returning to a room you thought would stay dark forever.